Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Coulter, coming to you from beautiful British Columbia, Victoria, and the wonderful House of Owl. And we're really, really happy that you could all join us today. Today, we have one of my favorite menopause people in the world. I want to say you're one of my favorite people in the world, but we really only talk about menopause. Today with us is Dr. Jennifer Bricks. She is a naturopath here in Victoria. You are amazing. So I'm just really, really thankful that you're here. I know enough about you and I know enough about what you do and you teach, but maybe you could tell our listeners about the scope of your work in menopause and some of your experiences. Like, just give us an overview.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you, Kelly, for this opportunity. Honestly, it's been a pleasure to be involved over almost the last year with you and just what you're doing and all the magical things that are coming from this. So I'm so happy to be here. As you said, I'm a naturopathic physician and I've been practicing for over 15 years now, which is hard for me to even believe. I do have a big focus on hormone health and hormone imbalances. And so, of course, that is very easily fits into the whole perimenopause and menopause picture. And as I, reach my, mid to late 40s, I'm becoming even more empathetic because I am experiencing some of those common symptoms as well that I see in a lot of my patients. And I think, when I started off seeing a lot of these patients, they put their trust in me and I was able to, really focus in on that and help these wonderful women get through or transition and enjoy the process. And now that I'm experiencing it, it's bringing even more value, I think, to my practice.
Wow. So that is really, that's the first time I've ever heard you talk about the potential to enjoy the process. Because when we talk at the menopause gatherings, our focus is on women preparing for, experiencing, or who have conquered menopause. And yes, it's enjoyable. Like, this is an enjoyable experience. But we know that because of the messaging that we've been getting for years and years, like decades actually, that menopause is a terrible thing and it's, it ruins your life. So we know that that is a part of it, that there are some pretty serious symptoms to menopause that women have to deal with. I really like that you just said that it's a process that you can enjoy potentially. Maybe you could tell me a little bit in your practice of what your women are coming to you, people who are experiencing menopause are coming to you with these symptoms.
It can all start at quite a young age too. So I think even though, there's 1.2 billion women in the world going through this, which is a massive percentage of our human population, it can start in our mid-30s, right? So this is like where perimenopause, where things start to shift. And so I'll see questions come up from patients, my cycle is so irregular, or my periods are so much heavier, so much more painful than they used to be. And what can I do about this? All the way to the quintessential hot flashes, night sweats, low sex drive, all that sort of thing in terms of like, what can I do? What are my options? What is out there for me? Because, when I go to my other family practitioner, I'm told that I can get an IUD or I can go on birth control, right? And so women are typically looking for sometimes alternatives, but also complementary options. What can they do in addition to, or what else is out there? And that's where I meant when I said it can be enjoyable, it's because it's such a learning opportunity.
I agree.
We can start to understand our bodies, and it's so powerful.
Yeah,
It's very empowering.
I like that. It's a learning opportunity because I want to stress everybody is different, right? Some people are very in touch with their bodies and every little thing that is going on. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think the majority of us are.
I would agree. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm not totally off base there. We are typically caregivers taking care of other people,
Hmm.
family members. A lot of us are in the sandwich generation
Hmm.
now. So our healthcare kind of maybe isn't always a
No,
priority,
we
right?
typically fall after our families, our children, our partners,
Right.
our careers, our gardens, right? Like all these things,
The
our
garden
house.
is healthcare.
It's true.
I'm a big believer in that. Going through the journey
Hmm.
and learning about your body. You're right. That is such a great learning experience. I think that's kind of why I started doing the gatherings,
Hmm.
because having gone through it and then seeing all of my friends who were like suddenly coming into this major state of like powerfulness. There's we should be talking about this. What are some of the things that women are coming to you with that you are really you're finding interesting? Tell me about some of the things that you've guided people through.
Yeah, so a big one that I see is the whole mental aspect, emotional aspect. Brain fog is
Right.
massive. Even though they say, and the medical textbooks say that brain fog will go away permanent, like it will go away after menopause is done, which
Right.
sometimes it doesn't really, it's not always over ever, right? Things will always change in our bodies. And so it's how to navigate that, because that can really impact our productivity and how we respond and react to things in our lives and our relationships and social, encounters and things like that. So I would say that's one area that I see patients coming in looking for some options. An anti-anxiety medication or an antidepressant is like the typical treatment, which to me is just outlandish. It's not treating the cause at all.
Right.
We know that when we go through perimenopause, we start to transition and our hormones are spiking and dropping. Progesterone typically just does a bit of a dive throughout that whole period. And progesterone is really, really important in supporting our GABA levels in our brain. And GABA is that neurotransmitter that keeps us calm and focused and quiet and grounded.
Okay. Can I stop
Yeah.
you there?
Yeah.
The GABA?
GABA. Yeah.
Okay, tell
Yeah.
me. Let's talk about the GABA.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is new information. My head is like,
Yeah.
what's GABA?
What is this? Yeah, it's the most it's the main inhibitory and neurotransmitter in our brain, meaning it helps to shut off excessive excitatory neurons. So brain cells that are, you're thinking and you're planning and you're worrying and you're panicking and you're, all of these things that we can tend to get into those
Yeah.
patterns,
Yeah.
which is important at some times of our day, but not all the time, especially not right before bed, right? Which is
Okay.
what a
No
lot of us
GABA
started.
before bed.
No, you want GABA.
Oh, I do.
Yeah,
Okay, GABA before
GABA
bed.
blocks all of that. So GABA
Oh,
will inhibit all of that
oh,
excitation.
this is new. I like this.
Yeah. So
How do I get my
so how
GABA?
do you? Yeah. So I mean, people will supplement. We're kind of segueing off the hormone stuff, but yeah, people will supplement with GABA. You can supplement with other things that will help support GABA levels. Certain types of foods will really support the production of GABA.
Oh,
Having a very healthy microbiome will help with GABA levels, but progesterone plays such a complex and direct role with GABA
yeah.
that when we move through that whole metamorphosis of menopause, our progesterone drop really can blanket that GABA
Mm,
and make us feel
mm-hmm.
a lot of that anxiety and that the sleep wake cycle issues and all of that stuff that we see
Mm-hmm.
emotionally and mentally,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course it impacts our relationships and our
Oh
social
yeah.
connections too.
Yeah, it's a
So
domino.
yeah,
It's an entire
exactly.
domino effect. We've talked a lot on the podcast about how it affects the economy, and I think
Hmm.
it's in the billions
Yep.
of how much menopause, because during menses, when you're not well and you've got these horrible cramps,
Hmm.
you can't go to work. And I think that has come to light during our reawakening to what menopause is, really how it's impacting us, women individually, but as a society as a whole. Is there anything else that is really coming up?
Yeah, good question. Muscle mass. I think of that a lot
Oh, that's a
too.
good one.
Muscle
Yeah.
strength, endurance. You're used to having a specific amount of strength when you do your activities, whether it's things at home or at the gym. And that drop can be pretty dramatic, right? Suddenly you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling not so, and well, the energy is another aspect too, but that strength that you once had. And I think that muscle loss is something we're not addressing very well. Bone health does get some attention with osteopenia, osteoporosis, and bone
Mm-hmm.
density issues
Mm-hmm.
as we age, but A lot of people don't know that bone tissue is actually 50% protein, not
Okay.
just that hard calcium
Oh
tissue. And
gosh.
protein is, that's where, what makes up our muscles as well. And so, we kind of try to have this balance between our bone health and our muscle health. So you have to think of both together. And that's why weightlifting is so beneficial for women
Yes.
going through that. Getting enough protein. We don't get enough protein. You should be consuming about 1 gram of protein for every pound of your body weight per day. And we're not really doing that. As we get older, we kind of go into the tea and toast syndrome where we're, sipping our tea
Okay,
and
don't
having our
diss my
toast.
tea. I love my tea. My theme is nourishment, as you
Yeah.
know. Eat the good things. I'm having steak tonight, I got to tell you. So, talking about the muscle mass and the brain fog, those are two of most
Those are
common.
2 areas. Yeah, I would say anxiety, balance is on top of that as well. And heart health, right?
Heart health,
Heart health. Yeah.
yes. I work in healthcare, but not to the degree that you do. I work at the Royal Jubilee Hospital at the emergency, and I do triage there. And I know that women present a lot of times with heart palpitations, heart racing, that kind of stuff, which I know now is a side effect. If we knew more about menopause, I think knowledge is power, right? So when you know what's happening to your body, because someone like you has said, Kelly, this is what's going on. Your brain is foggy, yes, but that's because your hormones are fluctuating,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of, or the gift that we have with having accessible healthcare.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If women are able to access healthcare, even if it's private healthcare, of
Mhm.
course, that's not accessible to everyone, and not all benefits plans cover, seeing a naturopathic physician, but having that extra time with someone. I sit down with my patients for an hour. I go through it all, right?
Yeah.
And what that person wants to discuss, they can. And looking at other options and how to test for things and how to look at different markers and see, preventatively what might be swinging too high or too low. Well, let's deal with that before it gets into an excessive or deficient state, right?
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
comes down to hormones as well. And how can we balance that as
Mhm.
we approach this, or as we are going through it, or even once we think we're done, right? And how can we
Mhm.
really promote optimal health that way?
I guess when I was beginning my menopause, I must have been perimenopausal. It was in my mid 40s, probably. I read an article written by Jan Arden,
Mm-hmm.
great Canadian songwriter, musician, actor. I think she does everything. And it was about her menopausal journey. And she was talking about finding things in the fridge, like shoes in the fridge and stuff.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I'm loud out laughing out loud, right? And then I'm like, oh my God, what
that's
that's what's
me.
going
Yeah.
on here. I didn't even know I was going through menopause, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there are parts of menopause that are kind of funny.
Yes.
Some of them are
Can
absolutely not funny.
Mm-hmm.
But can you just tell me a little, like maybe one thing that
Yeah.
has happened?
Well, I would probably say, we have to look at things lightly. And usually it's once we're out of that situation that we look back and can laugh at things. Like I would say the whole emotional ups and downs can become comical after. We can look back and laugh at ourselves, hopefully. Get angry at our partners, or we
I think those
say things.
episodes are kind of funny where
Yeah. Yeah.
people are just like suddenly blurting out what they're actually thinking. I
Yes.
think that is hilarious.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, now you're saying it like it is,
Right.
right?
And props to the other person to be patient and kind
Totally.
in those situations. We've had flowers and cards delivered to the clinic, right, from partners thanking us for, helping bring their partner back, or
Tell them you want chocolate.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's hilarious. People are, yeah, well, it is. It's going
Mhm.
to impact the rest of, their ecosystem, right? I have a lot of thoughts about hormones. But hormones, they mess with you sometimes, right? Like
Mhm.
there are all kinds of things. You might have more to say about hormones. Like, are they our friends? I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. They go everywhere, and so they impact all of our tissues, and
Yeah.
it's extremely complex,
Yeah.
and it's not as simple as estrogen progesterone, testosterone,
It must be fascinating to work in that world.
I mean, I love that. I love critically thinking.
I know you do.
I'm a nerd. I love, and I'm so happy I chose this area of medicine to go into because I do treat my patients are all individual. It's a not one shoe size fits all ever. It is time consuming to have and create treatment plans for patients, but
Yeah.
I love it because my goal is to try to find some commonalities, some ultimate causes, and then helping with the symptoms, of course, but treating the cause so that multiple systems can feel better. And ultimately, women are empowered to do that. They feel better.
Yeah.
They can stay on treatment plans, and then they can, share that information and help
Yeah.
others
Yeah.
that I might not be able to see, right? So
Yeah, that's lovely. I never really thought about that when people are coming to you to see you,
mhm.
they are able to then share. I think that is so important. When I started doing the gatherings, I was thinking it almost like it was community, women sharing information. We know that menopause is about to become super big business
Mm,
in the healthcare. And
mhm,
they're saying it's going to be a $28 billion business. There was also a cautionary tale attached to this big business, and that was, that people are going to be promoting things and there's going to be a lot of snake oil out there.
mhm.
I think we're on the same page when we talk about going and seeing a professional
Mhm.
first. Do you have any guidance for women on this subject of like how to navigate?
Yeah, it's tricky because there's so much out there with
Mm-hmm.
social media and platforms and everything and celebrities and people swearing by this and that. But again,
Mm-hmm.
remember, everyone is different. Everyone is an individual. So that we have
Exactly.
to come down to that. We also have to look at, I mean, this is the realm that I deal with a lot of. First of all, pharmaceuticals. Naturopaths in BC have pharma- pharmaceutical rights. I can prescribe, bioidentical hormone replacement. So I do that a lot with some of my patients that want that, request that, and talk about the safety and all
Oh, I
of that
didn't know
kind of
that.
stuff.
You can prescribe things?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, the whole bioidentical hormone
Right.
approach, that's all at my wheelhouse. That's what I do
Right.
a lot of with my patients and
Oh, good.
education about that. But then there's also supplements. Some people want to supplement with, vitamins or minerals or herbs or things like that, but they're not all created equal. There
Mm-hmm.
are multiple iterations on different things, and there's also, extracts versus whole components,
Yeah.
and what is the research showing? It's unfortunate that things like Health Canada, they will approve certain things to be on the market, but it might only be one brand or one type of that nutrient that has been shown clinically to do the things you're buying it for.
Yeah.
And then we've got all these piggybackers, but it's still safe. However, it may not be effective.
I mean, a naturopath is an alternative to trying to get in to see a medical doctor.
Hmm.
Am I saying that properly?
Yeah, I mean, we are both considered primary care physicians. So
Right.
in British Columbia, NDs and MDs can diagnose. So,
Right.
as a naturopathic physician, I have rights to diagnose. I can prescribe medication. I can send someone for blood work. Um, the real difference is I can't refer to a specialist.
Right.
And of course, I'm private. So you're paying out of pocket
Right.
for that care. Now, you will see me for an hour versus maybe 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So there is that. And there's pros and cons to both, of course. So I think you have to utilize what you have. If you've got a family doctor, wonderful. And if you feel comfortable to voice how you're feeling and and asking what your options are, then that's really important. I think self advocacy is really key here as well. We have to
I agree.
ask the right questions and say and be assertive in what we are looking for.
Absolutely.
And hopefully that will be met with respect and acceptance.
Yeah. Do you see that in our future women's healthcare centers that maybe we could have a more community approach where we
Yeah.
could get someone like you in?
Wouldn't that be
Wouldn't that be
lovely? I know,
fun?
I know. Well, there is, it's not an integrative clinic, but there is a family naturopathic clinic in Victoria that
Oh,
does,
wow.
offer sliding scale and
Oh,
free visits
fantastic.
to low income families and individuals. So that is another
Okay, my
option.
mouth is wide
Yeah.
open. Really?
There is. Yes. Yes. I highly suggest people look into that. It's called the Family Naturopathic Clinic and it's in Victoria, BC.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Hmm.
We're ahead of the curve. I've got to
Yeah.
tell you, I love Victoria so much. That's great. That is great that we're doing that. I,
Hmm.
I would like to see more of that. Is there anything that you want to say? Because you're just beginning your menopausal journey, am I right?
Yeah. I would say, based on
Yeah.
what I've assessed in myself, if someone has access to doing some more investigative work, again, to empower themselves,
Yeah.
you can get testing done to look at the highs and lows of where you are, and then to gauge what might be required for you to feel better. And I think that it's not a lost cause if you're already in your 60s and 70s still dealing with
Oh,
symptoms.
I'm in
But
my
r-
60s and I'm
yeah,
like, I just want to know more and
yeah,
more and more.
yes. And you can get that information. You have to find it in the right places, I think.
I agree.
Again, going out to see functional doctors and
Yeah.
naturopathic doctors and certain books and things like that, right? To get
Yeah.
that information, and podcasts like this, right? Um,
Thank you. Yeah.
but being, mindful and proactive and an advocate. So those are things that I think will help that
Can you repeat
piece.
that?
So being mindful, being proactive, and an advocate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I like that. That's really good message. I like the mindful part because again, women, we don't listen. We ignore
Yes.
our own, little messages that are coming from our body, and we're taking care of other people, other things, other, like our career. I'm a big believer in like slow down and listen. I
Hmm.
call it the feather, the brick and the bus, right? It's like if a feather brushes against you, that's like it's telling you something,
Yes.
right? I don't want to get too woohoo here, but it's like when your body is like when you're having your mind fog. Like I didn't know what the menopause was, the menopause, until I read that Jan Arden article, and but it was the way it was delivered to me. It was so humorous, and it was like,
Oh.
oh, this is funny, but it's not.
Hmm. Hmm.
I want you to look forward to your
Yeah.
menopause
I'm
because
trying to. Yeah. Yeah.
you're fully armed. Like you're kind of like
Yeah. I think I am. I mean, there's always more to learn. I can't treat myself, right? That's a bad idea, I think.
oh, or is it?
I need other people to help me. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a thing we go through together, even though we are isolated because our journeys are so
Different.
different, but we can still move through it together.
Yeah, I think women, I'm a proponent of women talking to each other.
Hmm.
I think that's huge. I'd love to do like, if I had the bandwidth to do like coffee meetup where we could all just get
Yeah.
together and cackle.
Yeah.
When you share the information, it becomes less terrible. Is that maybe the right word?
think the
Like, yeah,
stigma goes away.
and you can kind of laugh together,
Hmm.
right? And you can cry together too, right?
Exactly. And when you feel that empathy, it's so rewarding and it's
Right.
uplifting. And it
Yeah.
helps, I think, in addition to those other three things I said, being patient and
Yeah.
being kind to
Yeah.
yourself, right? And when we are put in situations of needing to help others and our friends and our family going through the same things, that
Mm-hmm.
brings up that kindness to them, but also to ourselves.
Thank you for saying
Yeah,
that.
I think it's important.
Is there anything you want to say to younger women?
I think it would be not to feel shame when things change and when you're noticing that what you've known for most of your life is different.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know going through that, it's an interesting realization,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
and it will just continue. I mean, we spend half of our lives, in most cases, half of our lives we are in peri or post menopause
Yeah.
versus our fertile years. So, not to feel shame, and for the young ones that like myself, digging for information, to choose good sources of information.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That
and
is a very good pro tip.
yes.
Yeah.
Sort of a segue, but when I'm not practicing, I'm involved in education, and it's a passion of mine because I know that, again, empowers people when they know
Mm-hmm.
more about their bodies and what they're going through and are given certain tools and tips. They can start to implement that and see benefit, that is very rewarding for me. I try to share that with, again, all ages on certain platforms. So again, for the young ones, but anyone looking for support or help, it's to
Mm-hmm.
find the right people that are giving out that
Mm-hmm.
information,
Mm-hmm.
that things are, backed up by science. I mean, I'm a nerd at heart, so I'm all into that kind of, yeah.
I love nerds
Yeah,
though.
I do too. Yeah, just stay away from the hype.
Yes. So, Dr. Brooks, I do want to ask for the sake of our younger viewers. So, these are maybe women in their 20s and early 30s. They're hearing about this menopause journey now. They're probably going, but we know menopause is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like death and taxes. I hate to make that comparison. What is it that youngish women can be doing now in anticipation of their menopausal journey? Like,
Mm-hmm.
in something very specific to menopause, we all know that, health and
Yes.
healthy
Yeah.
eating is, but something that will strengthen them for their menopausal journey.
Yes. Yes. So I'll give you some info. I think this is like a great conversation for like another full
I do
hour.
too.
So foundational health is very important. That's just the basics. So
Right.
if women are experiencing issues with sleep or mood,
Mm-hmm.
digestion, I mean, again, I don't want to get too into gut health, but we are what we eat, we are what we absorb, and we are what we don't excrete. And so hormones are things that we detoxify every day, and we
Okay.
need to eliminate those byproducts every day.
Okay.
And our microbiome is very involved in producing or involved in that whole process as well. So that's like foundational health.
Nutrition, like what
Nutrition,
you
sleep,
put into your,
lifestyle,
yeah.
but then
All I
stress.
heard was food, to be
Okay.
honest with you. I do want to say I'm very concerned about the amount of food that people eat that is not whole food, right?
Not whole food and contaminated or encourages, liver stress, I would
Mm-hmm.
say,
Mm-hmm.
and the exposure of xenoestrogens in our body,
Well,
which
okay,
is
new word.
yeah, xeno. So basically, exogenous, so things that come from outside of our body that mimic estrogen. Okay,
Oh,
plastic is a really good example.
oh,
So plastics, microwaving plastic, we know is horrible, right? Because there are xenoestrogens, chemicals that are xenoestrogenic. Those chemicals can get into our system. They can bind to one or both of our estrogen receptors or others and actually mimic the effects of estrogen, but actually, that can create worsening PMS and
okay.
worsening,
Good to know.
cyclical things. So that can really throw off your hormones from an external side of things. But then stress, I would say, is the other thing to always be mindful of and manage. And again, you can do this through foundational things like food and activity and lifestyle.
I don't think we talk enough about stress as a real health risk.
We don't. It's involved in 90 to 95% of all disease.
I honestly think that is a very under talked about subject. My doctor, I had a great family doctor when I was in my mid 30s, told me because of my genetics that stress would likely be my killer.
Ah,
Oh, yeah.
mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay. So I made some serious lifestyle changes, right?
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Stress
That's
is,
another show
it's
too.
another
Can we talk
show.
about that
Yeah.
also?
Yeah.
We got two more shows.
Yeah. I would say stress. And because whether it's perceived or not, because a lot of people don't perceive that they have stress.
Oh,
Stress can sound like some people think of stress as being anxiety. Like I've got a lot of stress. I'm
oh.
stressed out. I'm
Yeah.
anxious.
Okay, I
But
get
it's
that.
also having a full plate and
Yeah.
doing too much to your body physically. So even doing too much strenuous and excessive activity is very stressful to your body. And how your body deals with stress is it releases cortisol, which is the stress hormone. With young people who are really pressing and pushing on those adrenal glands to make more cortisol because they have a very full but busy and stressful life,
Mm-hmm.
by the time they get into that transition period, when the ovaries start to falter and eventually hibernate and then
Mm-hmm.
go away, there's no more production of estrogen and progesterone except for now coming from the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands pick up the slack when you go through that period. So if you have very taxed adrenals from a 20, 30 years of stress or busy lifestyle, you're going to find that transition a lot more difficult because you cannot keep more stable level of those hormones in your system. You're going to get more of those spikes and drops.
Yeah, that's interesting. Those are some of the key points that you would have for someone who is younger. And so let's focus whole foods, maybe?
Whole foods, making sure your sleep is dialed. So
Sleep
we
dialed.
all need more time. Don't take it out of your sleep. Taking time for yourself to do something that will nourish yourself. So whether that's, gentle exercises, reading, maybe not reading factual things, maybe diving into something a little bit more
Whimsical?
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Drinking enough water. I mean, the
Water,
basics,
yeah.
right? Hydration.
No, but these are all good tips, right?
Yeah.
And they're simple ones, right? Like, I think some of our solutions are quite simple, right? We kind of go for that magic pill.
We go for the magic pill and sometimes we think more is better. For the most part, everything in moderation.
Yeah. Oh, I live by that
Yeah.
one. All right. Thank you so much. I think that was great advice.
Yeah.
I hope some of our younger listeners are listening today.
Or perhaps their mothers are, right?
Or
And they
maybe
can
for the
pass that
next
information.
episodes.
Yes.
How do people get in touch with you?
From a patient standpoint, I can see patients across BC, so I can do virtual anywhere. But I do have the clinic here in Victoria.
Okay.
Where I will see people in person. Other than that, though, like I said, I'm involved in education, so I'm getting more and more involved in sharing that kind of thing in different platforms. So more to come for 2025 and beyond.
Good for
so,
you.
We'll hopefully be able to share more information that way as well.
Good.
Freshhealth.ca is the website that you can connect in there and find my information, follow me, all that kind of stuff.
I can't even remember how I found you, but it was a miracle.
I think through friends. I mean, that's Victoria, right?
It was our friends.
Yeah, through friends and word of mouth.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bricks. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today at Menopause. And we're again at the beautiful House of Owl, are just the best in supporting local artists. And we greatly appreciate you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. I didn't really prepare, but...
It's like worlds are colliding here. Have a chart. Well, that's why, that's why we have to have all the different age groups in the room, right? Because we have different perspectives. Okay, that's good. We're done.